Robin Farnsworth was dating Shane Horn at the time of her disappearance, but other two boys may have had a romantic interest in her that were not reciprocated. It wasn't just a love triangle, but it could have been a love square. She clearly was not interested in them, but that's not what we're debating here. The question is, how did they react to being rejected, and how does that reaction connect to Robin's murder?
Welcome back to episode 2 of Case Closed. In case you already forgot who we are, I'm Gage Galloway.
And I'm Jade Doolin.
And I'm Kenzie James.
Last episode, we talked about two cases that are somewhat connected.
Well, there is no proof that they're connected,
Yes,
but
that's the theory.
our wonderful corner person over there believes that there is a connection in between the two.
Yes, and other people also do. The families and a lot of the police and law enforcement people do, but because it is all circumstantial, we can't say for sure that they're connected. So it's not just a my crazy out of the woods theory. It is more of a common thing. It's just not official.
We don't think you're crazy. Don't worry.
And today we're diving into the first girl's story.
Okay, this case actually has a lot of varying pieces of information in it, so buckle up, because this might be a confusing episode.
Robin Lynn Farnsworth was 15 years old when she disappeared. Robin was one of the children of Kathy Seffers and Terry Farnsworth, and had a 9-month-old daughter of her own, Samantha. Terry Michelle Farnsworth, one of Robin's sisters, said that Robin was extremely devoted to her daughter and loved her. Former Daily Citizen reporter Tracy Whitaker says Robin's boyfriend Shane Horn told her in an interview that Robin told him she was pregnant before she disappeared. Samantha Ballard, Robin's daughter, refutes this claim and says no other family members can support Horn's statement. She says, in quote, "There are rumors going around that my mother was pregnant at the time of her murder. This is unverified rumor made up by her boyfriend at the time, who I've never met. I have not found a single friend or family member that says my mom disclosed this information to them." End quote.
Wait,
Now you talk.
they got a quote from the 9-month? No.
Yeah.
Yes?
Wow.
Crazy.
How old is she now?
20. She was in her 20s in the 2010s, so I think she's 30, late 20s, early 30s now.
Robin's story starts the day before her disappearance. According to calendar in the White County Sheriff's Office case file, Robin skipped school on January 26, 1995 with Horn and spent the night with her best friend Christy Ashby's house. Horn confirmed in an interview with the Daily Citizen that he and Robin did skip school together that day. Ashby also told in her statement on December 29, 1997, that Donnie Temple showed up late to school on January 26, about 15 minutes after Robin left, and was frowning, looking upset about something. Ashby thought he had seen Horn pick up Robin outside. Robin showed up to Ashby's house later that day around 4 p.m. and was upset because she liked Shane, but Ashby said that he was dating Temple at the time.
Okay, so this statement kind of caught me completely off guard when I read it, just because we thought everyone knew that she was dating Horn, but then this statement comes and says that she's dating Temple. But we'll unpack that a little bit later.
The last sighting of Robin on January 27th was that morning when she left Ashby's house early in the morning, wearing a red flannel, blue jeans, and a black leather jacket. She did not show up at school.
And now we have reached what I think is one of the biggest inconsistencies in Robin's story, is what day did she actually disappear? So some of the information and statements that we're about to share may have been clarified by investigators, but if so, it wasn't reflected in later notes. And this is kind of just me coming in from a third party. It's they could have all had this information and figured it out at the time, but because I wasn't there at that time, if they didn't explicitly write it down, then I might not know it. So some of this could have been already figured out and resolved, but we're just gonna kind of show you guys and talk about everything that I found.
So wait, let's age these people real quick.
Okay.
How old's Robin?
At the time, she was 15.
15 with a kid.
Yeah, with a 9-month-old.
Yes.
And possibly pregnant with another.
Yes, but we only have that one statement, and her family is saying that this is not true because there was no way to confirm it. And obviously, when they found her remains were too decomposed to the point where they wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah, there's no way to tell. And then the rest of them?
um, all around high school. I don't have confirmed ages for her boyfriend or like her siblings, but we do know that they're all in high school, so probably about that 15 to 18 range. Um, and then of course her daughter now is 30s, and then um, Horn, and then all the people who are still alive today who were teenagers at the time are all mid to late 40s.
The official timeline of the sheriff's office is, of course, the one that we're going to go with. Their timeline says that she disappeared on the 27th and was reported missing on the 31st. Okay, so Ashby said Robin was last seen on January 27th. Michelle and Steffers both say they saw Robin on January 31st, and she did not return home on that day. But the outlier is when Horn was told that she disappeared. Horn was grounded from January 14th to the 23rd, so he did not talk to Robin. They also went to different schools, so there wasn't any way that he would have seen her during the day. In his statement on December 29th, 1997, Horn said Steffers told him on January 24th that Robin had been missing since the 23rd. That's a whole week before she was officially reported missing, and well before either dates and the other sightings that says she was missing. Based on evidence and other statements, it's likely that Robin disappeared on either the 27th or the 31st.
Steffers' statement said that she last saw Robin on January 31st. She wrote a note for Robin to leave school around 2 or 2:10 p.m. that afternoon. This was confirmed with the Bald Knob High School attendance record, which showed that Robin left school early that day. Michelle confirmed in April of 2007 that Steffers wrote the note on the 31st, and the last time she saw her sister was around 10 a.m. between classes. An earlier, undated statement from Michelle said that the note was written on the day Robin went missing, but doesn't specify the date. Robin did not return home that afternoon, and Steffers reported her missing around 6 p.m. to the Bald Knob police.
That timing makes a little bit more sense if she went missing on the 31st, but if she went missing on the 27th, why wait 4 days before reporting that your child is missing? Meadows said members of the Farnsworth family had run into the law before, and Steffers had huge mistrust of the law enforcement. Another aspect is maybe because Robin was considered an at-risk runaway. She had previously run away once, before she had Samantha. When Steffers reported Robin missing, the Bald Knob police looked at it as a juvenile runaway case, and never considered looking at it like a more serious crime like homicide.
Arkansas legislature passed Act 764 of 1985, requiring all missing minors to be reported immediately to the Arkansas and National Crime Information Centers. This law had been in effect for 10 years when Robin went missing, yet the Bald Knob police did not report her disappearance to either board. Robin's mother and sisters also reported sightings of her days and months after her disappearance.
And I feel like this added just a little bit of confusion, just kind of the whole differing statements of the timeline. So if they're reporting her, like, oh, we saw her days or months after, okay, I feel like that makes a little bit sense if she was just missing, if she had run away. But if she's killed, that can really add confusion into the timeline with the police trying to figure out when was she actually killed.
And also, what are they saying if they're saying they see her after months? Are they just lying about it?
Yeah, I think it could have just been people, like, you see someone, kind of like the whole doppelganger idea, where it's like you see someone, you're like, oh my gosh, this looks almost exactly like this person, but it's not them. So I feel like it could have just been that in some cases if they thought they saw her months later.
And or grieving.
Yeah. On all sides, Robin's case was not handled properly from the start, and her case slowly grew cold when there was no progress. Ballard, Robin's daughter, says, quote, "No one was on her side. The police at the time did not take it seriously. She wasn't popular, she didn't come from money, and she had a child at 15 years old. All these things make BKPD all the time blow her off." End quote.
Guess it's time to share the story that we had. Back in high school, we had a kid that went through like a 2-day long stint where like his girlfriend was convincing him that he was pregnant because she was crazy, right? And we were playing paintball that day, and he like announced to all of us that he was going to run away, and then he did. His parents, however, did not report that he was missing because one reason or another, because they didn't have proper paperwork for him to be able to report that he was missing, and the person that ended up reporting him was actually his girlfriend's dad. Now, the crazy part to this story is it's just kind of like, it explains like how someone in a situation like this, where the boyfriend is saying that she's pregnant, she's already missing. She's done it before.
She's run away before, yeah.
Like, it makes
They probably just
sense.
think she's gonna
It
be
makes
back
sense
in a
that
week or
this is
so.
something they would think that would happen.
Mhm.
But still, I want to go back and talk about something we read earlier. Ashby said in her statement that Robin wanted to break up with Donnie on January 27th, but she was dating Horn at the time. Horn's statement said that he and Robin started dating early into November 1994, and he said Temple was interested in Robin romantically and tried to make a move on her, but Horn made him stop. Temple did stop after that, as far as Horn knew, of course. Both Michelle and Melanie, Robin's sisters, had no idea that Robin was dating Temple, and both knew she was dating Horn. Additionally, Horn and Melanie said that Robin and Temple had never dated. As for another theory, former White County Sheriff's Office investigator Heath Meadows said Robin's best friend said that Grubbs allegedly had a crush on her, but romantic interest was not reciprocated, and she rejected him.
Wow.
So
both of the guys who've already been tried for murder in one of the cases, the other case we're going to talk about, had a romantic interest in Robin.
So we talked about this in the first case, mentioning, kind of going over everything. That these, so if you haven't watched that, go watch that. But Grubbs and Temple are two main suspects here. They're
Who are both friends.
both convicted. Not at this point, but both are convicted. Are they older?
Yes, they are both seniors in high school, and we'll get into that a little bit more with the next episode.
She's 15.
Yeah, so at the time, Grubbs was 17 and Temple was 18, and then Robin's 15.
So she shut both of them down, which explains the statement in the very beginning about the love square.
Yes, and this is where we see that come into play. Just with these statements from Horn and Heather Meadows, and everyone is kind of seeing, we have Robin and we have Shane, and then so like we know they're dating, that's been established, but then we have the statements about Grubbs and Temple in those other two corners.
Because she's totally dating someone from a different school. They always don't lie about that.
Okay, back to the timeline of Robin's story. We're now in December of 1997. A hunter named Johnny Johnson reported finding human remains off Old Russell Road on the 28th. We told you this part of the story at the beginning of the previous episode, but we had to summarize it again to tell Robin's story chronologically. If you don't know what we're talking about, go and watch last episode. Everything will probably make a lot more sense when you come back. We'll wait. Alright, now that everyone's caught up, we'll continue.
Officers responded at Russell Road and found remains that were later confirmed as human. Bones included a skull without a jaw, a leg bone, a rib, multiple vertebrae, a bone from a finger. Daily Citizen article January 6, 1998 says that when the medical examiner office confirmed these were human remains, they also said that they had been in the woods for 2 to 3 years. This lines up with Robin's disappearance 2 years prior and fits our timeline.
In March of 2003, the White County Sheriff's Office found a box of bones in their evidence room during a transfer. They were sent to a private lab in Reno, Nevada in August for testing. On May 7th of 2004, Sheriff Philip Miller held a press conference and announced that the bones were positively identified with DNA as Robin Farnsworth.
That's absolutely terrifying that there can just be bones sitting on a shelf somewhere.
Yeah. Gage has a quote from Miller about discovering the bones in 2003 that is part of a statement he made regarding the evidence. The statement was in the case file but did not have a date, so if it was not from the press conference, it was likely around the same time.
It was brought to my attention after the press conference that I had received the remains back from Arkansas State Police Crime Lab when I found the box containing the evidence. The reason they were back was the FBI Crime Lab have received samples of the remains, refusing to take all of the remains. I had Sergeant Cheeks send them to the genetic identity for DNA testing. This was due to the FBI stating it was going to be a year or longer before they could process the evidence. End quote.
With virtually no information about her disappearance, there weren't many suspects or clues to investigate. One of the police's initial suspects was actually Robin's mother. Former White County Sheriff's Office investigator Heather Meadows says Seffer was a suspect in Robin's disappearance and went through interviews and polygraph exams, but was clear. Another suspicious event was that Horn said in an interview that Lunsford threatened to kill Robin if she didn't get out a couple weeks prior to her disappearance. Ashby said Robin told her on the 26th that Gene Lunsford, Seffer's boyfriend at the time, was having sex with her. It was not confirmed by any other statements in the file, but but statements from Robin's sisters and mother did confirm Lunford's threat. This lead was also investigated, but he was ultimately cleared.
So how did the police end up suspecting Grubbs and Temple? Well, for one, they were convicted of a similar crime with Kenyatta a few weeks after Robin's disappearance. So in the timeline, the similar MO makes sense. There's also 2 reports of comments Grubbs made about Robin's murder, though it's not been officially confessed to the crime. On April 4th, 1995, Temple told a jailer that he needs to tell her something. He said that Grubbs showed him Robin's body covered in newspapers at a barn in Russell, Arkansas. Detectives went to the barn but only found evidence of decomposition and purple fingernails. And then, of course, 2 years later, her remains were found less than a couple hundred yards from the barn. They searched. Miss Bettle Paisley, a teacher at Bob Knob in 1995, said that in 2007 that Temple was easily manipulated, and she didn't think Temple could make up a story about seeing Robin's body.
January 2000.
That statement's hilarious. Your teacher's just like, I don't think he's creative enough to come up with a story, guys. He's probably telling the truth, not because I can see into this kid's mind, but because I don't think he's smart enough to know.
That's crazy.
We'll get into that a little bit more, just like with the reason with that and kind of talking about who the suspects are and kind of like them growing up a little bit in high school and their personalities in a future episode.
Makes you wonder what their mental state was. The January 2007 statement from Sheriff Philip Miller in the case file described an interview he had with inmate James Johnston. Johnson had contacted him about Robin's case and shared information Grubbs had held in prison. Johnson said that Grubbs talked about how he got away with Farnsworth's murder, saying that he raped her, choking her while doing so, and he hit her head. He was also allegedly said that Temple was with him at the time, and they hid her body in the woods. These statements definitely pointed to Grubbs, but he would not confirm or confess anything. That's crazy that he wouldn't,
He'd say it,
no. Like, he wouldn't, say yes, but he wouldn't say no.
but he'd say, good gosh.
These statements definitely pointed to Grubbs, but he would not confirm or confess anything, so it is still circumstantial. The timeline of the case events from the Daily Citizen said Grubbs was interviewed in 2007, and he did not confess or deny anything. The timeline says Grubbs repeatedly said he did not have the information the detective required.
Another anomaly in the timeline and statements of the police received from Robin's mother in 2001 said that C.J. Duffrey, a young man at the same age as the teenagers, told her that Temple had talked to him about Robin and Kenyatta's murder before he was arrested in March. Duffrey's comments to Sefer included that Grubbs killed Robin on the same day as Kenyatta because she threatened to turn the boys in for Kenyatta's murder, that Temple strangled Robin with a belt, Derek hit her in the head with a shovel, and that Grubbs was obsessed with Robin, but she just wanted to be friends. And that Grubbs was in a What?
He was in a satanic cult. Is that confirmed?
This is the only statement that says, has any mention of him being in a cult, so I actually have no idea. That's just not the problem, but that is the issue I saw with a lot of these statements is that just it's one statement here or there. We're not saying it's not true because innocent until proven guilty, or you want to believe and act like it's true and follow the lead until you can disprove it.
But still,
so it very well could.
If you think you're in a satanic cult, you might be giving them a few reasons to think you're in a satanic cult.
Then again, this was during the time that if you played D&D once, you were considered in a satanic cult.
It's true.
Yeah, I do know there's some around here. There was a cult in White County, or here in Searcy actually. So it just based on that, it could be possible that there was actually one there, but I have no idea if there was a satanic cult in Bald Knob. I have no idea for sure if he was in it. We just have this one reference. It's he might have been in one.
Anyone here have any weird experiences with satanic cults they'd like to share to further?
Would you like to share a story?
I don't think I have any.
I don't know.
Dang it. We gotta get out more, guys.
Okay, so that's another statement that says Grubbs was also interested in Robin. So it appears that both boys were interested in her romantically.
Which I'm just I just don't understand. She had a boyfriend at the time. They were dating for at least 3 months. Yes.
they killed someone, I don't think that's the biggest issue that they got going on in the brain.
True, but that was later.
2 weeks.
5 weeks?
Weeks. Thought I said too earlier. My bad, Chief.
Okay. I don't know. It's just really interesting, but we do have that kind of another statement to support that Grubbs could have been interested in her romantically, so it just kind of adds a little bit more validity.
Also,
Yeah.
Johnny Johnson's a sick name.
Mm-hmm.
Like Peter
The
Parker.
hunter Johnny Johnson.
Like,
that's kinda cool.
dude, give this man his movie. Johnny Johnson, the hunter who found Robin's remains, came forward on May 10th, 2004, with a statement that also points to Grubbs and Temple. He said he saw a female he believed to be Robin in a truck with Grubbs and Temple at a car wash. Johnson said that he knew the two boys and what they looked like, but at the time did not know the female. He said later he saw the boys in a truck in Old Russell Road, where he found Robin's remains. Johnson's statement did not specify if the female was or was not seen in the truck at the time.
The timing of the statement raises a lot of questions. There was no media coverage of Robin's disappearance and murder until Johnson found her remains, and then none again until the remains were identified. But there was certainly coverage of Grubbs and Temple during their arrest and the trial process. If Johnson had seen them in the truck, he would have recognized their photos in the paper in 1995. So why did he stay silent? 2 years later, he found Robin's remains on the road he allegedly saw the boys on after she was with them. Again, why stay silent in 1997, even after finding the bones? And what made him decide to come forward in May of 2004 after the remains were identified as Robin? He should have recognized her picture if he saw her face in 1995. But how did he forget it or neglect to share the information for 9 years? Well, in his statement on May 10th, Johnson said he tried to tell the sheriff in 1997 about the teenagers in the truck, but the sheriff didn't answer or return his calls, so he just stopped trying to tell him until he saw Robin's remains on television in 2004.
And this just feels all kinds of weird to me.
Yeah.
Like, if you see something you think is connected to a crime, a murder, especially as we now know, like, why just decide, I'm not going to tell the police and just sit on that for so many years?
Well, also, you do gotta remember, we're standing over the whiteboard with our little pieces of red yarn connecting all our dots and everything like that and going, that doesn't line up. When these are regular people living regular life, the girl had ran away before. At the time, the police officers had called her a runaway case, and he had called them before all of that, right?
Also, why remember these facts 9 years later? You would think if it's something important enough to remember for 9 years, like, I don't remember who I see at a car wash, especially 9 years ago. I don't remember their faces. Like, that's such a small detail for him to remember so vividly 9 years later. And also to have found her bones in the exact same spot he saw them later that day.
The only reason I could, say that I could see where he's coming from is, small town, as mentioned. The fact that, these kids are terrible, they did these terrible things. If that was the last time that I saw them, I probably would remember. That's the only way that I could think, but still.
Yeah, but just like with them doing this, because I mean, just a few weeks later they did kill Kenyatta, so it's like you would have seen their faces. So if you had been like, oh, this was the last time I saw them in person, I don't know, for me at least, I would hope it would have triggered something to be like, oh, I saw this, and there's like an inconsistency in this. Like, even if it didn't line up with Kenyatta's case, you still could have gone to the police and be like, hey, I saw this with these two boys. This might be something you want to look into.
It also shows us how the two girls' stories are different, and how with Robin, she came from an area that was not very great, and to where people were less worried because they just thought she was a runaway.
Yes. And the immediacy of the fact that they found Kenyatta. So Robin, 3 years later, the difference between the two and how the police can work with it. And I think it's crazy that they could still identify those bones 5 years later, however long. That's insane. Another question that brings up why Robin would be in a truck with Grubbs and Temple. Robin and Temple were distant cousins by marriage. Temple's stepfather was a cousin of Robin's father, but Horn and Melanie both said that Robin and Temple did not get along. Horn told former Daily Citizen reporter Tracy Whitaker in an interview that there is no possible way Robin ever would have gotten into a vehicle with Grubbs or Temple.
Well, Sweet Home Alabama, because he also liked her. Another connection.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. You
Small
opened up the
town,
you opened
small
up the door.
town.
We're going down it.
Okay.
Small town.
He's also 18. She's 15. She is a child. And they're cousins.
And he was still like,
He was like, but wait.
It was not by blood because it was his stepfather that was related to her family.
Listen,
So
as soon as the
Still,
word cousin gets thrown around,
We're done.
it's done. Like, do I drop the story that we have?
Go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, I went to school with someone that dated their cousin. It wasn't that distant or anything. Well, it was pretty distant. But the whole issue with it was the fact that they were still by law cousins. And so I think they went out once, found out they were cousins, and they were like, oh crap. And the moment everyone found out that they were cousins, it was game over. Because, like,
Yeah.
as soon as that word was dropped, it's like, oh, you're basically dating your sister at that point. Because please do remember, they're still in high school. Word still travels like it does in high school.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter what legal red tape there is. The moment anyone figures that out, you're cooked.
And also, in high school, 15 versus 18 is a bit of a difference, especially when the 15-year-old already has a 9-month-old baby. At another connection that Robin had to Grubbs and Temple was actually through her boyfriend. All three boys worked at the local Piggly Wiggly, but it seems like Robin and Grubbs were never directly connected other than being classmates, so what was his motive?
Well, we don't have full confession from Grubbs or Temple. We can know for certain unless they confess. But there is some speculation regarding their romantic interest. If she was continually rejecting them, could that have led to the crime of passion? Kenyatta's aunt, Ferla Phillips, said that in 1995 Democratic Gazette article that the family thought the murder could be a crime of passion, so there is a speculation that Robin's murder was also a crime of passion.
Because the police do not have Grubbs' confession and are lacking other pieces of evidence, among other reasons, Robin's case has been cold for a long time. But what does that mean for Robin and her family today? Robin's remains were released by the sheriff's office on June 14th in 2004, and the family received that small piece of comfort of finally laying her to rest after so long. Unfortunately, they would probably never get full closure and the justice Robin deserves. It is highly likely that Robin's case will never be prosecuted because of how the investigation was handled by the Baltimore police. The mishandling of Robin's remains and the fact that there is not a lot of physical evidence from 1995, or the officers who collected it are unable to testify, and there's no connection, and there's no confession from Grubbs or Temple regarding Robin's murder.
Shane Horn said, quote, "What happened to Robin hurt all of us who ran together back then. We were a close-knit group, each coming from a harsh background, and we found strength together. We depended on each other, but we weren't from the good side of town. We didn't have money. Parents didn't have clout in the community, and were easily overlooked. That's why it was easy for the police to assume she was just a runaway. It tore us apart in more ways than one. It still hurts sometimes. Robin was beautiful inside and out, and she was always ready with a smile and encouraging word. What happened here is truly a tragedy, and I miss her." End quote. So, bones found 2.5 years later, and them still being able to identify that after sitting in a room for 5 years.
I don't actually know how long they were sitting there. We know they were discovered in 1997 and they were found in 2003. But just again with like evidence and processing and everything, we don't actually know how long they were in the evidence locker.
Still,
Hi.
forensics are awesome. Like just the ability to like find that. It also mentioned the theory that's got me the most going in my head right now is the fact that One of them mentioned the barn and the fact that he was taken there and that's where the body was hidden.
Mm-hmm.
They went and searched the barn, couldn't find anything except for decomposition, which don't know entirely what that means, but the purple nails is the more interesting thing to me because that's a random thing to say.
Well, the decomposition, that just means like, or kind of like, for me, I think like the ground is disturbed, or like there's pieces that show that like something, like a dead body, or like an animal's body, like after there's a dead animal, you can visibly see that something has been there.
Yes.
That's decomposed. So it's just saying they found that where it's like, okay, it's been disturbed, something has been here, but other than the fingernails, they weren't really able to tell what it was because it wasn't there.
It's crazy to me with how connected these two stories are that this was never brought up in court.
How far away was the body found from that barn?
Less than, I mean, estimates say 100 to 200 yards, but it was definitely less than 200 yards. So pretty close.
Barn theory.
It is heartbreaking that Robin's story will never fully be told on her own, and that she has not gotten the justice she deserved, and that it will always be told and tied to Kenyatta's story. And we recognize this is what we have done this season while sharing their stories. But without a full confession and evidence to close Robin's case, Kenyatta's story is the best way to get the fullest picture we can of what happened to Robin.
We'll look at Kenyatta's case and learn her story in the next episode, so stay tuned for that.